Let's talk wood species. There's tons of wood species available, and Cabinet Designs is able to source any hardwood that's available in the market to build you custom cabinets out of, which is very unique. Most companies have 6 or 7 wood species that they use. We can use all of them. I want to show you some of the more common ones that we use, and then some of the more exotic ones that maybe you haven't seen before. So we'll start with maple. Hard maple. We paint on hard maple, and we also stain hard maple. That's maple in a natural state. This is maple with a stain on it. The grain pattern is very consistent. It's not wild, which a lot of people like. It can get a little blotchy in places, and that's just the characteristic of maple. There's also wormy maple, which is a little more exotic and maybe something you haven't seen before. You get these little wormholes in there from the worm, and the wood is kiln dried and the worms do die, but they leave this pretty cool pattern, sometimes referred to as ambrosia maple. That is maple. We're using a lot of select alder these days. It is a little bit softer of a wood, but the grain is very similar to a cherry wood, often referred to as the poor man's cherry. It accepts a stain excellent and goes a little more brown, where cherry tends to lean a little more red. This is cherry wood in its natural state. And this is cherry wood with a black glaze on it. Oftentimes we'll glaze it to give it a little bit more character. And that is cherry wood. Here's cherry also in a darker stain color, which covers up the grain pattern a little bit more. If you don't want to see all the grain, it still has these big cathedral V-shaped graining patterns. And that is cherry. Oak is very hot right now. This is a flat cut white oak. Lots of variation in the grain. We do our best to select the best material so you don't get too wild of a grain pattern. But this is a flat cut white oak. There's also a rift cut white oak, which keeps the grain pattern a little more straight, which is very popular right now. That's rift cut. There's also quarter sawn white oak, which has these quarter sawn flecks in it. And that's just the way that the wood is harvested. It all comes from the white oak tree, but those are 3 of the most common cuts of white oak. There's also hickory. Now hickory can get very wild. The grains can get crazy. The color in the wood changes. You can see this is a light piece, this is a dark piece. That is to be expected, and that's what people love about hickory. Big disclaimer on hickory: if you don't want wild grain patterns, stay away from it. Let's see what else we have here. We have walnut, very common walnut. This is walnut in its natural state. Walnut is a gorgeous hardwood. I don't love to stain it, but we can. And here is walnut in a stained door, a light stain, which keeps the grain pattern. Very pretty door. That is walnut. Here's some others that you might not have seen before. This is a ribboned sapele. You can see the beautiful grain pattern here. It has a lot of dechoyancy, which means you can kind of see through the wood with a clear coat. This is natural sapele. Comes from Africa. This is African mahogany in the same family. Very similar. We love that. There's also this one is really cool. This is natural. This is very hardwood and pretty exotic. It's called Padauk. Haven't used it a whole lot. This door is probably 20 years old, but it's a very beautiful hardwood. So that's just a few hardwoods that we use here. If you want something that you haven't seen here, we can get it if it's available. Would love to hear what your favorite wood species is.